Hello and welcome to Russ's Movie Corner. My name is Russ, and as you can see, I'm sitting in front of my movie corner. And I've got my Armor of God t-shirt on today, and I've got my little Bible mini-series right here, which means I'm going to be talking about the Bible. I have a video here. The whole title is cut off because my video is kind of in the corner. But it's basically called Noah's Ark, the story that disproves the entire Bible. Now, I don't know for certain whether this person is truly a Jehovah's Witness, if they're failing to understand their religion, if they're just questioning their faith. I'm not sure, but this actually came across my feed. I don't know how it came across my feed. I just happened to click on it because I was just kind of scrolling through some videos on my phone, and I happened to see this. So I'm going to go through this video. I'm going to kind of talk about this. I'll get back to doing the Simon Dan video pretty soon. And it's kind of funny because where we're at in the Bible is actually going to talk about that a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the story of Noah's Ark to you. Okay? Then I'm going to go through this video, and I'm going to stop it at certain points. And I'm also going to sort of kind of keep track. I'm going to try to keep it around about 40 minutes an episode. It's probably take 2 or 3 episodes. It's about a 23-minute video almost. So I'm going to kind of, sit down and go through that. I've been kind of talking about some of the stuff. Some of the different things that he talks about in this video, I will go through and talk about, and I will put some links down below in the description section for you so that you can see where I'm coming from and where this guy is not obviously getting his information from. Now, I know down in the corner of the video, it says hashtag Noah's Ark, hashtag Bible, hashtag Jehovah's Witnesses. I think this guy's a Jehovah's Witness. I don't know. Okay? So I'm not going to make any statements against Jehovah's Witnesses or against any other Christian denomination. Everybody has their beliefs. Everybody has their different things. But as you'll see, once we start getting kind of into this a little bit, you're going to find that he's going to go off the rails, and he's going to start delving into things that he obviously doesn't have any experience with or any understanding of, and I'll get into that as we get to it. Okay? So without any further ado, let me read the story of Noah's Ark, story of the flood. Okay, this is important to understand this, and it's important to understand why this story is presented the way it is, and then once we start getting more into it, we'll start, getting more into various things. Okay, so the story of the flood goes from 6:5 to 9:17, okay? It's a pretty long story. When the Lord saw that the wickedness of man on the earth was great, and that the whole bent of his thinking was never anything but evil, the Lord regretted that he had ever made man on the earth, and he was grieved to the heart. So the Lord said, I will blot the men that I have created off the face of the ground, both men and animals, reptiles and birds of the air, for I regret that I ever made them. Noah, however, had found favor with the Lord. The following are the descendants of Noah. Noah, among his contemporaries, was a pious and exceedingly good man. Noah walked with God. Noah had 3 sons born to him, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Now, in God's sight, the earth was corrupt, and the earth was full of wrongdoing. God saw that the earth was corrupt, for every mortal on the earth had corrupted his life. So God said to Noah, I have resolved on the extermination of all mortals, for the earth is full of wrongdoing through them, I am going to exterminate them from the earth. Make yourself an ark of oleander wood. Make the ark with cabins and smear it with bitumen inside and out. This is how you are to make it. The length of the ark is to be 300 cubits, its breadth 50 cubits, and its height 30 cubits. You are to make a roof for the ark, finishing it off on top to the width of a cubit, and the doorway of the ark you are to put in its side. You are to make it with lower, second, and third decks. On my part, am about to bring a flood upon the earth, to destroy every mortal from under the heavens, who has the breath of life in him. Everything that is on the earth shall perish. But with you I will make a covenant. You shall enter the ark, accompanied by your sons, your wife, and your sons' wives. Also, of all living creatures, of all animals, you must have 2 of every kind enter the ark, to keep them alive with you. They are to be a male and female, of the various kinds of birds, various kinds of animals, and all the various kinds of reptiles. 2 of every kind are to join you, that you may keep them alive. Take also some of every kind of edible food, and store it by you, to be food for yourself and them. Noah did so. He did just as God had commanded him. The Lord said to Noah, Enter the ark with all your household, for you alone of the present age I have found righteous. Of all clean animals you are to take 7 pairs, a male with its mate, but of the animals that are not a clean pair, a male with its mate. Likewise, of the birds of the air, 7 pairs, a male and a female, to keep their kind alive all over the earth. For in 7 days' time I am going to make it rain for 40 days and nights on the earth, to blot off the face of the earth every living thing that I have made. Noah did just as God commanded him. Noah was 600 years old when the flood came on the earth. Noah with his sons, his sons' wives, went into the ark to escape the waters of the flood. Of the clean animals and of those that were not clean, of the birds and of all the reptiles, a pair of each, a male and a female, joined Noah in the ark, as God had commanded Noah. Then at the end of 7 days the waters of the flood came on the earth. In the 600th year of Noah's life, on the 17th day of the 2nd month, on that very day the fountains of the great abyss were broken open, and the windows of the heavens were opened. The rain fell on the earth for 40 days and nights. That same day Noah, with Shem, Ham, and Japheth, Noah's sons, and Noah's wife, and the 3 wives of his sons accompanying them, went into the ark, together with all the various kinds of wild beasts, all the various kinds of domestic animals, all the various kinds of land reptiles, and all the various kinds of birds, everything with feathers and wings, of all creatures in which there was the breath of life. A pair of each joined Noah in the ark. Those that entered were a male and female of every kind of animal, as God had commanded him. Then the Lord shut him in. The flood continued for 40 days upon the earth. The waters mounted and lifted the ark, so that it rose above the earth. The waters rose and increased greatly on the earth, so that the ark floated on the surface of the waters. The waters rose higher and higher on the earth, until the highest mountains everywhere were under the heavens were covered. 15 cubits above them the waters rose, so that the mountains were covered. Every creature that moved on the earth perished, including birds, domestic animals, wild beasts, all the land reptiles, and all of mankind. Of all that was on the land, everything in whose nostril was the breath of life died. Every living thing was blotted off the face of the earth. Both men and animals and reptiles and birds, they were blotted off the earth, so that Noah alone was left, and those that were with him in the ark. The waters rose on the earth for 150 days. And God remembered Noah and all the wild and domestic animals that were with him on the ark. So God made a wind blow over the earth, and the waters subsided. Likewise the fountains of the abyss and the windows of the heavens were closed. The rains from heaven ceased, and the waters abated steadily from the earth. At the end of 150 days the waters subsided, so that on the 17th day of the 7th month of the ark was grounded on the mountains of Ararat. The waters subsided steadily until the 10th month, And on the first day of the 10th month, the tops of the mountains became visible. At the end of 40 days, Noah opened the window that he had made in the ark and released a raven, which went flying back and forth until the waters had dried off the earth. Then he released a dove to see if the waters had subsided from the surface of the land, but the dove could find no resting place for the sole of her foot, so she came back to him into the ark, for there was water all over the earth. He put out his hand, and catching her, drew her into the ark with him. After waiting another 7 days, he again released the dove from the ark, and in the evening the dove came back to him, and there in her beak was a freshly picked olive leaf. So no one knew that the waters had subsided off the earth. After waiting another 7 days, he released the dove, but she never came back to him. By the first day of the first month of the 601st year of Noah's life, the waters had dried off the earth. So Noah removed the covering off the ark, and found that the surface of the ground was quite dry. By the 27th day of the second month, the earth was dry. Then God said to Noah, "Come out of the ark, your wife, your sons' wives accompany you. Bring out with you every animal of every sort that is with you, birds, quadrupeds, and all land reptiles, that they may breed freely on the earth, and be fruitful and multiply on the earth." So Noah came out, his sons, his wife, and his sons' wives accompanying him. Every animal, every reptile, every bird, everything that moves on the earth came out of the ark by their species. Then Noah built an altar to the Lord, and taking some clean animals and birds of every kind, he offered them as burnt offerings on the altar. When the Lord smelled the soothing odor, the Lord said to himself, "I will never again curse the soil because of man, though the bent of man's mind may be evil from his very youth, nor will I ever again destroy all life as I have just done. As long as the earth endures, seedtime and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night, shall never cease." God blessed Noah and his sons and said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth. The fear and dread of you shall be on every wild beast of the earth, and on every bird of the air. And in the case of all the reptiles on the ground and all the fish in the sea, they have been delivered into your power. Everything that moves is alive, is to be food for you. As once I gave you green plants, I now give you everything. Only you must never eat flesh with the life, that is, the blood, in it. For your own lifeblood, however, I will require an account. I will hold every animal accountable for it, and I will hold men accountable for one another's lives. Whoever sheds the blood of man, by man shall his blood be shed. For God made man in his own image, and as for you, then be fruitful and multiply, and be prolific in the earth and multiply it." God then said to Noah and to his sons with him, "As for me, I do hereby establish my covenant with you and your descendant after you, and with every living creature that is with you, the birds and the domestic animals and all the wild beasts with you, as many of them that came out of the ark. I establish my covenant with you, that never again shall all flesh be destroyed by the waters of a flood, and never again shall there be a flood to ravage the earth." Further, God said, "This shall be the symbol of the covenant which I am making between myself and you, and every living creature that is with you, to endless generations. I put my rainbow in the clouds, and it shall be a symbol of the covenant between myself and the world. Whenever I bring clouds over the earth, the rainbow will appear in the clouds, and then I will remember my covenant, which obtains between myself and you, and every living creature of every sort, and the waters shall never again become a flood to destroy all flesh. When the rainbow appears in the clouds, I will see it and remember the everlasting covenant between God and every living creature of every sort that is on the earth." God said to Noah, "This shall be the symbol of the covenant which I am making between myself and all flesh that is on the earth." So, that is the story of Noah's Ark. And I know that was kind of long, but I wanted to kind of discuss some of these things because we're going to come back to this in a few. Because as we discuss things that this guy's going to talk about, we're going to end up with various problems that he's going to start making as we go through this. So, let me start the video, and then I'll pause it and start talking when we get to that point.
Despite growing up with a picture of Noah's Ark on my bedroom wall, I would go 25 years of my life without ever studying the story's historicity. That was until one particular day, when my dad recommended that for my next public talk, I take a look at that outline, "The Flood of Noah's Day has meaning for us."
I'm going to pause it right here because I think that this, and you won't be able to see the whole thing, but he'll highlight here in a second. It's basically an argument that I think is used by certain things, because it says, note to the speaker, convince the audience that 1, the flood was real, a historical event, 2, Jehovah will destroy present world in great tribulation, 3, in order to be survivors we must take action and condemn the wicked by strong faith. And then he's going to talk about a part that says it's actually, it'll say 1, and then it'll say you, and then it says we know. So about the third one down after the global flood was a real historical event, it says, we know there was a global flood because the Bible clearly teaches it as a factual event. Now, what he's going to do is he's going to point out that that is a circular reasoning argument, which it's not. But that's how he's going to try to present it, is, oh, see, this is circular reasoning because over here this says this, and over here this says this, and so this isn't real because, you know, this. And so many times have I run into these type of people that claim Christians have circular reasoning when the problem is that it sounds circular. We know there was a global flood because the Bible clearly teaches it as a factual event. Because the Bible is a historical document. Okay? Lest we forget, the first books in this Bible, okay, that we call the Old Testament, comes from the Jewish Bible. Okay? The Pentateuch, the historical books, which are Joshua through Esther, and then the poetical books, Job through Song of Songs, and then the books of the prophets, Isaiah through Malachi. And then, of course, there were a couple of those in there that when they put together the Bible at the Council of Nicaea, that they didn't include, that the Catholic Church was using as teaching books, and so they ended up putting those in later. But we know that the Bible is a historical book. Let me let him kind of talk a little bit more about this, and then we'll come back to this point in just 1 second. I just want to kind of get through this first couple of minutes here.
A talk in which the #1 objective is to convince the audience that the flood was a real historical event. Over the next couple of months, I would go on to research every single drop of evidence put forward to support the Bible story as being historically true. I would then reread the Bible account and address very important questions that had popped up into my mind over the process. A process of which optimism turned to skepticism, turned to mental despair. How through isolating and dissecting just one Bible story sent the infallibility of the entire Bible crashing down.
Morris and Co. is no longer on Jehovah's Witnesses.
So I'm going to pause this right here, and I'm going to say that if your faith in the Bible is so shaky that just the mere questioning of one story out of the entirety of the entire 66 books of the Bible causes your faith to fall apart like a Jenga puzzle there, then your faith was pretty shaky to begin with, son. Okay? I'm just going to come right out and say it. Okay? Maybe it's not the Bible that needs work. Maybe it's you. Because like Drew, the genetically modified skeptic, who, and I don't know if he was a Christian or not. He claims he was a Christian, and then when he started learning about the evidence for evolution and all of this other stuff, and then he started learning about 20th century morality, and then he started reading some of the books in the Bible, and he started reading some of the passages in the Bible that people were pointing to. It caused him to question his faith, and it led him down the path of the sort of agnostic / atheism that he is now. I would say that if that is your view, if your faith is so easily shaken by somebody that has this happen, that it's probably not the Bible that needs work. It's probably you. Because your faith should be a lot more than just, oh wow, I have questions. I can't be a Christian anymore, dang it. Man, I have questions. No, go find the answers to the questions. And if you can't, then let it be known. But don't do what this guy's going to do. And we'll get into that as we kind of talk about it, okay? Because he'll come back around. I mean, it's so funny. He'll like do all these questions, and he'll talk about how bad this story is without really addressing how, how wrong his conclusions are. But then he'll get back to, like, but in the end, I mean, Jesus used it as a teaching moment, and, dang nabbit, we shouldn't be saying Jesus was a liar. Then why did you make this 23-minute video if you're going to sit there and question exactly that? Does that make sense to anyone? Or is that just, I mean, if you're going to have those kind of questions, if you're going to have lingering doubts in your head, then maybe it's probably not the best thing to go out and make a 23-minute video where you bash the Bible, and then about, 18, 19 minutes in go, well, but Jesus used it as a teaching moment, and, we shouldn't question Jesus. You just spent 18, 19 minutes doing that. Because isn't that the point of the God's Word? Isn't that the point? Or did I miss something somewhere? You see what I'm saying here? There's a lot of people who question the validity of the Bible, and it shakes their faith, and then at the end they go, well, maybe I should still be a Christian, or maybe I should still believe in Jesus. It's not how it works, man. Either you believe in 2 Timothy, where he says, let me find it. Well, I have the verse memorized. I was trying to find the verse in the Bible here, but basically, either you believe that all Scripture is God-breathed and useful for teaching, rebuking, correcting, and training in righteousness, or you don't. Okay? So if all Scripture is God-breathed, then don't you think that when God was telling Moses the story of Noah and how he destroyed the world with a flood, don't you think that that would be enough evidence that the Bible is true? Especially when we know that, like, there are a lot of other Bible stories that are also true. Especially in ancient Israel, we know that there actually was a historical man named Yeshua, Jesus, who lived in the Holy Land and was crucified by the Romans. We know that there was a man named Abraham that lived there. We know because we've seen rocks with writing on it. We've seen a whole lot of evidence that have writings on Abraham in other cultures. We know that things like the Babylonian exile actually happened because we have cuneiform cylinders that you can actually see at the Museum of the Bible in Washington, D.C., USA, that actually have the story of Daniel and the lion's den and the guys that were thrown in the furnaces and all this kind of stuff. I mean, come on, man. Seriously. If this is causing you to question your faith, and as we get into this, you'll kind of sit there, if you're like me, you'll scratch your head because you'll be like, how in the world did this guy ever think that people were going to not think that he was potted? Especially with some of the really, really weird stuff that he brings up. And we'll get into that when we get to it.
Did a man named Peter ever actually walk on water?
Yes.
Were thousands of people fed with just 5 loaves and 2 fish?
Yes.
And excluding the one off Shrek, was there ever a talking donkey?
Yes.
Whether you're a die-hard believer or a real skeptic, there is no way today that you can prove or disprove that those things happened. If you're going to believe they did, you have to do it on faith. But why I
Not necessarily.
love this story so much is because faith doesn't need to enter into the picture. If it's true that only 4,300 years ago, there was a global flood which destroyed anything and everything in its path, excluding just an ark of animals and 8 humans, then the evidence will be overwhelming. We know there was a global flood because the Bible clearly teaches it as a factual event. To anyone well versed in logical fallacies, this is a clear example of circular reasoning. We know...
Not any more circular than the arguments that evolutionists use. I'm coming at this seriously now, okay? But see, again, that sentence is based on the fact that this is a true book of history, okay? That this thing that we call the Bible is a true testament of God, okay? And it has been proven as such, because we know it has been proven as such. Because we have seen how time and time again when people come out and say the Bible isn't true, you have a lot more people coming out and saying that it is true and that it is factually accurate and that it does tell you what is necessary for a good life. So, honestly, if you're coming from that point of view of, if you're biased to think that, oh, I'm going to say that this is not true, that this is not true, okay, then yes, this does sound like circular reasoning. Oh, we know it's true because the Bible says so. Well, there are other things in the Bible that are historically accurate. So, if you're doubting the historicity of one story, then you're doubting the historicity of every story, and we already know the historicity of the Bible is true. Okay? Many secular historians, not just Christian scholars, but secular scholars know that this, okay, is part of... It's true, okay, that it is part of history, that they can actually read this as a historical text, because things that happened in one part in here have been found in historical documents in other places. If it were like, say, the Book of Mormon, where I know I said I wasn't going to talk about other Christian faiths, but if you look at the Book of Mormon, none of the events and things that have happened in there have been backed up by historical documents from Native American records here in America. Okay? If Jesus truly did come over here, they did a lousy job of keeping track of their historical records, more so than their actual histories. Because the actual Native American tribes that lived here in North America had never seen white men or even Asian, Eurasian people, Jewish people, anything like that, prior to Hernan Cortez and Christopher Columbus coming in and sailing in and saying, "Hi, how are you? We're here." Okay? So the thing is that when you start to look at the veracity of stories, especially when it pertains to this book is historically accurate. And we know that it's historically accurate. So him saying, well, this is a circular logic, it's not when taken within the context of the actual historicity of the entirety of the Bible. Because we're saying there are a lot of stories in the Bible that are true. We know these stories are true, so if God said, the Bible says that the earth was created in 6 days by God, then guess what? The earth was created in 6 days by God. If it says that there was a global flood that wiped out 99.9% of humanity, and Noah, his wife, and his sons' wives survived on an ark, then guess what? That probably happened too. And I'm just saying that because I think it's important to note that the more that people start to push these type of boundaries, and the more that they start to try to marginalize and try to push the Bible off to the side of history and say, no, it's not accurate, then you're actually taking really true, verified facts and just throwing them out the window. In which case, you might as well take that poster of yours and throw it in the trash can, take that nice Bible that you have there, close it up, go throw it in the trash can, and just become an atheist. Because that's where you're at when you start to question the veracity of this book. Because it has been proven by not just Christian scholars and biblical scholars, but it's also been proved by historical and archaeological evidence, and they're now actually finding out that there's a lot of scientific evidence that's in the Bible that, you know, a lot of science is trying to push back against, but they can't deny it. I'm going to go a little bit more, and then I'll probably call it an episode. And then when we come back, we'll just kind of jump right back in, and we'll, you know, just kind of get right back into this video and just kind of keep on going. And it's probably going to take me about 2 or 3 episodes. It took me a while to read the Bible story in the beginning, and I wanted to make sure that you had the foundation of the actual story, because he's not going to read the whole story. He's just going to read select parts, and then he's going to nitpick from there. And it's funny because when they call... when they talk about Christians, and like I said, I believe this guy is a Christian of some kind, when they talk about us cherry-picking stories, this guy's going to do that. And it's like, dude, seriously, context freaking matters in this case, okay? Because then you start to become like the movie Noah from Darren Aronofsky, where it is just bad. I mean, you start to mix all these different things in there, and I mean, it's like, yeah, and then Noah's like this evil, vengeful person, you know, and it's like, really? Whereas, I mean, if we look at something like Exodus, Gods, and Kings, they changed, you know, they Christian Bale's Noah was a lot more, you know, it's like when God would come to him and say something, he'd be like, because God came to him in the form of a child, and he's like, I don't know what you want from me, you know, and he tried to prosecute wars his way, and things didn't work out so well, and he's like, oh, crap. And then, you know, the little child, God would come up to him and be like, yeah, you figured this out yet? It's not going to work that way. And that's the problem. When you start taking God out of the equation, and you start trying to interject other false gods in for God, things start to fall apart, only because you're not believing in what God is actually telling you. Let's continue.
It's true because the Bible says it's true. It's like a Muslim saying, we know the Prophet Muhammad was a messenger of the true God because the Quran teaches it as fact.
Which is actually what Muslims believe. If you actually look at what Muslims believe, they believe that Muhammad was a prophet of the one true God named Allah, which in Arabic, Allah means the God or one God. I mean, that's literally it. I mean, I don't know what else. I know that Allah isn't the actual one true God, being a Christian myself, and I know that they're a derivation of Judaism and Christianity, but what this guy's saying is actually what Muslims believe. And if you go watch The Apostate Prophet, if you actually go listen to what Zakir Naik says, if you go listen to David Wood of Acts 17 Apologetics, he says it. So honestly, dude, your analogy here is very thin.
Or a Hindu saying, we know that Lord Shiva brought his beheaded son back to life because the Vedas teaches it as a factual event.
And again, yes, because that's what they believe. So, do we know that Hinduism probably isn't real because it has like some 33,000 gods. Yes. But but you can go and talk to an actual Hindu and you can say, do you believe in your religion that Shiva brought his beheaded son back to life? And they will say, oh yes. Yes, we believe that. And you'll say, well, how do you know? Oh, because this book. And they'll show you the Bhagavad Gita, and they'll show you, and it will say, because this said so. So, it's just, dude, so thin. Like, it would have been better to say, again, we know because this is a historical book, but it almost would have been better to say, it would have been like the Mormons saying, Jesus came and visited America because the Book of Mormon says so. And because the Book of Mormon says so, we have actual documents and actual teachings from Native American tribes that show that the Book of Mormon never happened. Okay? And, it doesn't make Mormons any less of people. Okay? I've had many Mormon friends in my life. I've had many different people in my life that have subscribed to Mormonism, and I've known many Mormons, and they're very, very nice people. It's just that their Book of Mormon does not actually what actually happened. It's not an actual historical document like this is. Okay? And that's what I'm trying to say. This falls apart because you're literally using other people's belief systems as a justification for why your belief system shouldn't work. You're saying God said there was a flood because the Bible tells us so. It's like saying Allah was the only one true prophet because Allah told him, or Allah, because the Quran told us. Duh. That's exactly what the Quran teaches, that Muhammad was the one true prophet. Okay? That there were other prophets before him, but he was the one true prophet that brought... And Mormons believe the same thing, that Joseph Smith, okay, found these golden plates buried, and he created the another testament of Jesus Christ by, creating, by translating these plates. And, he was using this, loop, and he was doing all this other stuff and all this kind of thing. Yes, Mormons believe that. Okay, just like if you talk to a Hindu, I can guarantee you, they will tell you that they do believe that Shiva brought his dead son back to life because their holy book says so. Okay, now, do we have any proof that Shiva is real? No. Okay? In fact, we have a lot of proof that a lot of the gods of Hinduism are not real. Just like, Thor wasn't real. Just like, all these other, things weren't real. And I believe a lot of people don't really understand that when we see some of this stuff, okay, we can't separate the mythology from the historical facts at times. And this is one of the things I was having some conversations and started noticing that in America today we have so many different things that people don't know what is true and isn't true anymore because the line between truth and fiction has been muddled so much that nobody knows what is true and isn't true. And part of that is because of things like YouTube and things like social media platforms. Because literally anyone can come out and say anything they want about anything at all, and people will believe it. Okay? And I'm not here to say that, oh, just because I heard somebody talk about this book when I was a kid means I believe it. No. Okay? I went through life, pretty much my teens and early 20s, like this guy, not really sure what I believed. Okay? Not really sure if if this book was actually factually correct. When I was in college, back in the late 90s, early 2000s, I was in a geology class, and I realized that I really didn't know that much about the Bible at that time, and I'd only been a Christian for about 2 years of my life, about 2 to 3 years of my life, and, you know, I really didn't know that much about the Bible, okay? And a lot of people, like this guy, would have been like, oh my gosh, how did you survive? Well, it's pretty simple. I studied. I started doing some research. I started looking at the facts, okay? And my dad turned me on to some people like Josh McDowell and Lee Strobels and some of these other people who had talked about the Bible from secular points of view, from atheistic points of view, and how there was an overwhelming amount of evidence that these things were actually true. I mean, the reason why the Dead Sea Scrolls was such a find is because it's one of the earliest written accounts of the entire Bible, like what we call our modern Bible. It's like everything was written down and we were able to kind of translate it, and it's all exactly what's in the Bible already. So it's not like somebody was just, you know, rewriting a bunch of stories. It's, we see these ancient scrolls from a region in Jordan that has thousands upon thousands of scrolls that are books of the Bible. And we can see this, and we can translate, and we can go, wow, it has not changed since these people wrote it down and stuck them in this cave until now. And that's the point, okay? Let me do one more little thing here, and then I'll end the episode.
The problem on all three accounts is that if you don't share the same presuppositions as the one saying it, it's completely ineffective reasoning. What I was looking for was evidence that could not be refuted, and I thought I found just that. On page 328 of the Insight book, produced by Jehovah's Witnesses.
Okay, so I'm going to stop it right here, and then when we pick it back up, we'll start from here. So these are different countries with different flood legends, and I will put this at the end. I'll find this chart, similar chart, and put it in the end of the video, okay? So that you can pause it and you can look at it and you can see what it is. And so, because of where my face is right here, you won't be able to see the whole chart. And it's going to become important in the next part, because you're going to want to know that there are some different places that are actually not near any major tributaries or arteries or anything like that that this guy's going to talk about. And yeah, his thing is going to fall apart quick. So we'll get there, but I just want to say that, you know, this is the end of part 1, so stay tuned, because there's going to be another part, okay? And and I mean, I'm going to try to get these kind of filmed and out as quickly as possible so that I can just kind of get them done, because I don't want to languish on them. I know I've kind of done that with the Simon Dan and the Mr. Reagan videos. I'll get to those, but I saw this and I knew I had to sit down and do this, and I had to do it right this second, because if I didn't, then it was gonna languish for a while. So I figured I should sit down and do this and make sure that we go through this whole entire thing. Okay, so I just want to say thank you for watching. Have a wonderfully blessed day, and may God bless you and your family.